So we're here to solve this Kurotto puzzle pairs by Swaroop. It has every clue next to another clue with an adjacent edge. That's the pairs theme to it. And it looks like it has a fair number of situations at the start where we have adjacencies where, for instance, one or zero of these cells are taken, but we end up with a situation like this where we can say this group that's nearby has to be of another size. What I'm going to do to make some of this notation easier is I'm going to just actually turn on surface and number marks as defaults in my tab selection. So as I go through, we can use them together. There's another situation up here where we have, and maybe even another kind of marking that might help you sort of go edge and helper. We've got some cells where we know we can't take both of those cells in a shaded context. For instance, if I took this cell, I can't take this because I'd be putting two cells together near a 1. If I took this, I'd be putting two cells together near a 1. And if I took this cell, I can't take any more because I'd be putting another cell next to a 1. So this is effectively a limited cul-de-sac that has an option of just one cell for it. So for this 3, it has to take at least two cells out from the other side, which can't be more than the 2 I just shaded in. We can't take one more down because of the 2 right near it. So to finish out this clue, we need to mark cells like so. That actually finishes out this 1. It finishes out this 1. It puts in a space where we're going to have a group of size 3 coming out from this 4. And it puts in a group of size 3 coming out from this 3. And we can come back to even seeing that, for instance, you can't shade both of these cells off of this 2 because it would join up with this group. And so we know that a cell like the one I just marked has to be shaded in, so these have to be shaded. To finish this out, we get this cell off the 6, and this looks to be actually a key part to the puzzle, that we have now another group that's 3 total shaded cells off the 6, and we're going to need to fill in more on this bottom 6 somehow. It could take as many as 3 from this left side, but it's going to need to have more on the bottom or right where it gets connected. So the last place we didn't really take this deduction at the start was this 2 and 3 that are right adjacent to each other. We know that there are 2 coming out from the 2 on its left side, but what that forces is at least one cell coming out from the 3 above, and it's actually the case that it will take exactly 1 or 3 cells based on whether it takes the cell to the left of the 3. If that's a 2, 2 plus 1 is 3, or if this is a 0, 3 across is what happens. And that actually forces a situation up here where this group just above the 7 is either 4 large or 6 large. And one of the things you should recognize, if it's at least that large, is it comes over straight to the left. And you can ask, is it possible for it to not use this cell? If it took both of these together, it's 4 large, it finishes out this space, but it now cramps too little left over for this group that needs to take 3 cells. So for sure, this group takes this cell. And once it takes this cell, recognize that now there are no more distinct cells this 7 sees that the 7 to its right sees. And so whatever value is in the cell below has to actually be connected to the cell of the 7. So imagine this was a 1. Where are you going to put another 1 around this so that 1 plus 6 is 7? That's just not possible. And so we're going to see that we now know for sure that this is a 3 and this is a 4. And we're going to have to figure out how do we fill in the groups above so that we have a valid set for the 4 happening. A quick way to see that it's not this left cell is that would make this group have to be 4 large and connect up to this, which isn't going to work because it's a 4 versus a 3. Where if it's this cell, we can have a joining to form a 3 large group above, but have 1 extra cell over here that we can take. And so this looks to be the only way to fill in that top region. We finished out the look of all these clues and doing that, and just doing some bookkeeping while we're at this. Okay, so the place we were looking just before moving to this lower right corner was this 6 cell here, and the reason it's interesting is it can take as many as 3 to its left, but it's going to have to take this cell to the bottom. It could take 1 more to the right side, so its smallest value, if there's 1 to the right and 3 to the left, is a 2. If it takes the 3 to the left, it could be 3 large as well, and that's without using this one over here. And if it doesn't use the 3 at all, then it can be a 5 or a 6. But if we actually think about the 5 or 6, the 5 or 6 have to come over to these cells to the left and would touch this 4 directly, and so those aren't possible. So 2 or 3 are the only options for it, and both of those require taking the cell to the left of the 6, which marks this one between them unusable. This cell is shaded in. We now get to a space we really have to think through how to finish these values, again, where you could have a 4, 3, or you could have some other set coming in. There aren't a ton of quick deductions. I think some of this is going to be somewhat indirect. One thing I can see right away is at least this 6 here, which has 3 below, is going to get its last cell from one of these two, and so it's not going to take this. This 5 has 3 more cells coming off from it, and that probably puts a limitation around this 4, because let's say this cell down here wasn't used, and as a result, these cells coming out from the 4 used. We have 4 cells in this group off this, and we're going to need to take a group that has 3 cells coming off of this 5, and those are going to collide. A 4 large and 3 large are going to collide. So this cell for sure is used. Let's now do sort of one more step of indirect deduction and say, what if this cell isn't used? Then we have 3 coming off this space, and again, we're going to have 3 coming off the 5, so they'll want to be the same 3. But now we're going to have a case where we want 2 coming off of this 5, and we're going to want at least 3 coming off of this 4, and they're going to come together, and those will also cause an issue. So it looks like some of these indirect steps say that these cells connect together, which is a good start. We can then do another indirect sort of thing, which is say this was used, so this is a 1 plus 3, that all looks good. This 5 needs to now take 2 more cells off of it. 3 plus 2 is 5, and the 2 it takes are the 2 where we need to take 1 more off of this 3 group, either this cell or this cell, to get 3 total, and we basically have blocked off, by putting these cells in, all the cells that want to go there. So it's another indirect cancellation. This being a 1 is no good, so this is 4 large, so it being 4 large fills in this. This now has 2 and 1 and 3. This 4 wants to connect with this 4 directly. If it didn't, if it did this, you'd sort of mark all those off, so this comes in straight away. This 5 needs to take 1 more cell, but it needs to take whichever of these cells is going to mark this as unusable. This 5 still needs to take 3 cells around it, and it can't use this cell, so we're going to get to a situation like this where we've got to force 3 in to force 1 and force the last one in. So a lot of works with partial sums in this grid, a lot of work where the adjacent clues we're forcing an indirect space where you'd have to shade one of these cells, but at the end shade the opposite or non-touching cell around the adjacent clue and then work through them. So this rightmost set of columns with the 3 into the 7 into the 4s was one key set of deductions. And then these 6s in the middle that really limited the options that are left were another set. So hope you got a sense of how to play with Kurotto, also a sense of how to use things like the edge helper cells or marking numbers within the shaded groups to help track with this puzzle. We'll see you again soon.